I'm Chris Gore from Film Threat, and I'm proud to be with Alan Ng, the editor-in-chief of Film Threat. We saw Dune together, and all I can say is, Alan, let's fight Matt Damon. Right now, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So just for a little bit of context, I have never read the books, and I have seen the David Lynch version and the miniseries like 2 weeks ago. So that's me coming into it, and I believe you're much more in tune with the book and the story itself.
Yes, I should precede this with, I am kind of a Dune fanatic. I mean, we even made some Film Threat Dune out of the Dune font. I made Film Threat t-shirts. That's how much I'm into it. I read the book when I was 14, the first book, over a summer, and then read it like every summer through high school. I read the first 4 books, which is Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, and God Emperor of Dune. Oddly enough, God Emperor of Dune is probably my favorite because it's very heady and philosophical. Dune is more your traditional Joseph Campbell hero's journey story, but it is sort of an inverse of that, a flip of that, or a flip of the white savior story. And I've been a fan of Dune. The David Lynch film is really what inspired creating Film Threat. The very first issue of Film Threat was inspired by my colossal disappointment with that movie, because I'm a huge fan of David Lynch, and I thought, oh my gosh, my favorite director making my novel that I grew up reading as a kid amazing. And then it was a disappointment. I mean, you know, David Lynch had so much going against him with that film. I mean, he originally thought he was going to be able to make a 3-hour movie. Dino De Laurentiis said, nope, 2 hours. That's all you get. And he did the best he could with the technology at the time. And looking back, I mean, design-wise, it's pretty amazing. That sci-fi special, which I know you saw recently and reviewed on the site, which you can go to filmthreat.com and look up Alan Ng or just look up Dune, and you'll see all the reviews. That was so almost like a stage play, the way it was set up.
It was,
right?
Yeah.
What did
like
you
BBC, like a BBC production, basically.
It was pretty cheap. It was pretty cheap.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I noted in both reviews, but after watching the David Lynch version and watching the miniseries, I still don't understand the allure of Dune. I don't understand why these novels are so amazing. I mean, it's a good action adventure story. I'll grant you that, but and it's got a little bit of mythology in the way, Star Wars and the Force. But I still didn't get a sense of, well, why are people so into this book?
Because, well, here's for me. I think it just hit me that, one, it was the right age. So when I read it, I was effectively the same age as the character Paul Atreides, about 15, 16 in the first book. And it just had a profound effect on me, right? And it was this dense sci-fi book that not only includes things you don't normally see in sci-fi. There's politics, there's religion, but there's also, spaceships are not a big part of it, right? There are no robots, right? There's technology, but there's no AI. This is a far future that Frank Herbert envisioned. And it also includes all sorts of themes about ecology, right, and the environment. Mm-hmm. And it's a little also inspired by Lawrence of Arabia, which is a film I really loved as a kid. So I think it was reading it at the right age, which really got me. And then also, and George R.R. Martin has mentioned this before, Dune was really the inspiration for Game of Thrones, which Game of Thrones it's a fantasy series, but instead of giant sandworms, you have dragons. You've got different houses feuding, right, over the throne. It also includes things like religion. Game of Thrones had a lot more sex. Not that Dune doesn't have sex. It certainly does. But so I come in with this, I've been a Dune fan forever. I've never seen Dune brought to the screen in a way that I felt accurately represented the book. I also feel that same way about the Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
I feel the same way. I mean, that was like my gateway comic, that and Batman, right?
Yeah. I mean, Roger Corman didn't quite get it either.
Well, he did the best adaptation that's the most accurate to the characters, as done by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. But to get back to Dune, I've read the book and I'm obsessed with it, and I reread it recently. And by reread it, I mean I listened to the audiobook. The actual, what's interesting about it is the new version that's on Audible is they cast people. So there's an actor who does the voice of Baron Harkonnen, and there are different actors that play like Lady Jessica and whatnot. So, and then there's a narrator. So it's almost like a performance, and there's even kind of music and they use sound in the book. So
I mean, I will say that my daughter, she's reaching the 15 point, and yeah, she won't see the movie because she really wants to see the book, and so that's kind of our group project together.
She wants to see the book.
She wants to read the book, yes, and see it as well. And so yeah, this is kind of our father-daughter bonding moment.
That's cool. Well, I mean,
Dune, so
I do recommend the audiobook. I mean, I recommend the audiobook because I've already read the book. I mean, I read it 4 times. One of those things I kind of revisit and go, this is incredibly poetic. It's so dense. I mean, it has a glossary in the back of like what the terms mean. To jump right into the movie, what I liked that Denis Villeneuve did is he didn't rely so much on, all the language of Dune, right?
Yeah.
It's all done in context. Whereas I felt like David Lynch's film, they do this thing in the David Lynch film where you get the characters' inner thoughts and they say, yes, perhaps that. And
I thought that was interesting to do because it's never been done before, and I don't think it worked.
It's interesting. It didn't work. What Denis Villeneuve did is there's this Bene Gesserit. They use these hand signals, right? And there's subtitles, right? So really, if you're a really good actor, you're going to convey what you're feeling inside. You don't need a lot of the stuff that David Lynch did with that whispering. The whispering didn't work. It was really pretty unnecessary.
Yeah, it pulls you out a little bit.
But the subtitling was awesome. I thought the subtitling really worked and made it feel more alien. And that's I think the first thing that impressed me, because I went to that 10-minute preview of Dune in IMAX where they showed like a scene and they showed the first 10 minutes, although I think it was slightly edited.
Yeah, well, let me speak to that point for a moment, because I walked into the David Lynch version cold as well as the miniseries, and it starts with all this exposition, and unlike Lord of the Rings, I was still confused by all the exposition afterwards, because they're introducing weird names, unusual ideas, and when you're going in cold, there's this disorientation that goes on. And I'm at this point lost, and now we get into these characters, and I don't know exactly which characters with which house, and then the context of those houses. What I think Denis Villeneuve did right was he just kind of got into the story and allowed us to kind of figure things out without a lot of exposition, and told the story in a way that I understood where we were at right off the bat. And I knew where we were going, even with the little bit of knowledge I had from watching the previous movies.
Right. Well, we should say, I guess, that this is a non-spoiler, although if you've read the books, everything's been spoiled to me, including what's going to happen in the next 2 movies if they're made. But what I really appreciated was its groundedness. It's grounded in a humanity, right? You understand, and they have to kind of like House Atreides, Caladan, this is their planet, House Harkonnen, right? Gidi Prime. So they set that up, the different planets and houses. They do that really well. And then it feels otherworldly. I mean, like there's almost a sameness that happens. Especially with the last Star Wars movies, The Mandalorian, there's a sameness. It's like, yes, I've seen spaceships flying. I've seen X-Wings. It's not exciting anymore. It was exciting in 1977. And then, on the VHS tapes that we all wore out in the 80s, and then on the DVDs, and then on the Blu-rays, that stuff's not exciting. What Denis Villeneuve did is he showed us, this is very different. Yeah. And he didn't over-explain things. He left a lot of things, especially with the guild navigators, right? Which are people who have been deformed because of their addiction to spice, right? They're able to fold space, but he doesn't even explain that. I think it's unnecessary. And what's cool about that is this movie, Dune, which is Dune Part 1, this is the setup. this is the world. Here's the houses. Here are the conflicts, right? Here's the emperor's got this grand plan, and things are set up. I also think that's sort of the flaw of the film is like with the Lord of the Rings movies, right? There's 3 movies and they came out 1 year after the other, right? With Dune, we don't even know what the metric is for what would be considered a success. Usually it's box office, right? It makes hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't think this is going to make in the hundreds of millions in domestically in the US because HBO ruined it by putting it on streaming, right? It's on streaming day and date. It's on streaming, today, Thursday, right? When we're recording this. So, and I'm actually going to see Dune again in the theater in IMAX because I have to. And I'll watch it on HBO Max, for my 3rd or 4th viewing, whatever. But I think that's going to blow it. So knowing that it's like, okay, you've set up this amazing, the chess pieces are all on the board. We see the battle and the chess. We can see where this is going. Are we going to be able to see it? And that's kind of a colossal disappointment.
Well, I'm Warner Brothers to me is an interesting movie studio because I think they're very fan friendly in the sense of they want to get that content out there and that they're willing to do. I mean, honestly, they were the first ones to really promote DVDs when it was the battle between DVD and DivX. They said, no, we're not doing DivX. We're just doing DVDs. And they released their entire catalog on DVD. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that they're trailblazers in terms of entertainment technology. But the other thing is, the question I think really is being posed is, can Hollywood continue to make movies for hundreds of millions of dollars anymore in a post-pandemic world? But can a movie garner, can even a Marvel movie garner a $200 million budget? And that's ultimately the question is, I think if there's a part 2, it's going to come down to how cheap can he do it?
Well, I mean, ultimately, Squid Game, which was made for $21 million, estimates that the value, or at least the number of views that it had on Netflix, is worth $900 million. That was a $21 million investment for a South Korean production, right? And that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed Squid Game. But for Dune, I do think it's going to come down to those views. So I encourage everyone with an HBO Max subscription to just put Dune on repeat and just let it play over the weekend and just watch it, as many times as possible in a day. It is 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But
the upside is Suicide Squad is under the same, umbrella in the sense of in theater release and HBO Max release same day. And I don't think anyone will deny that Suicide Squad wasn't a hit.
No, well, what did it make? Like 30 the opening weekend? I mean, that's kind of
that's right after the theaters started opening up again.
And we'll see what Dune does. I mean, I don't know, considering how No Time to Die was kind of a disappointment at 56 million. It's just, but the whole thing is that a couple things. One, I actually do think that they're going to make the follow-up to Dune. I think they're waiting for these numbers on HBO Max. I think they're going to make a determination fairly quickly. I happen to know that the next 2 movies are planned out. The second movie is prevised and it's ready to go. It's a matter of scheduling and budgeting at this point. But technically speaking, this Dune is fairly low budget. It was made for, the budget was 165, 170. It's been reported that's pretty low budget for a film of this scale. And I would say that most of that budget went into the design, right? Like we're setting up the world because there are a couple big set pieces, but the big stuff happens in the second half. And a lot of that is even in the books fairly vague, right? Like Frank Herbert did not go out of his way in the books to describe the battles. It's like, there is a battle, and then here's the setup. A battle happens, and then here's the results of that battle. But he doesn't really go into a huge amount of detail in terms of the specifics of what happens during those battles. It's like there's a battle.
Yeah, this person, it's a bunch of chess moves, basically.
Exactly, the chess moves. It's like, well, here's the result of that chess move. So I guess what I really like about our conversation is you're not necessarily a huge Dune fan and you have not read the book. I am a huge Dune fan. I sit here talking to you with a Dune sandworm that I
what you do in the bedroom is your business.
I still have this. I mean, let's be honest. The sandworms look like uncircumcised penises. let's
or a botched job. Basically.
Yeah, let's not even get into that. Look, I've had this since I saw the 1984 David Lynch Dune. I have kept this. This has been through many moves, and it's been displayed on many shelves, and it sits right here next to me. So, Dune super fan here, and then yourself, Alan, being the Dune novice.
I'm a big sci-fi fan, and I love
true.
I love the action. I mean, this really felt like an action adventure, one that we've been waiting for a long time through the pandemic, and it's just one move, one set piece after the other, one action sequence after the other, and it was great, and and I think Timothy Chalamet kind of, I think I described him as a more refined Luke Skywalker in this movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's the Luke Skywalker that comes sort of preloaded with some training. And the other difference with this is they literally fight with knives. Yeah. Now, it's not really explained in the movie why they fight with knives. I mean, I'll tell you, they have these shields, right? And if I come up to you and I have my shield on and I try to hit you, it's going to bounce off the shield. If I kind of slowly, I can actually enter the shield and kill you. You've got to be really skilled to be able to hurt someone, injure someone with their shield on. Now they do have laser guns or whatever. I forget what is it laser guns? Now I'm forgetting that. They just have blasters, laser guns, whatever. But if you shoot someone who has their shield on with a gun, it basically creates a nuclear explosion. So you're basically going to kill yourself and the person that you're shooting the gun at, which is why it seems weird. Yes, in the future, they fight with knives, right? And it's this whole, which makes it much more intimate, right? And there are fights that happen with these shields on, right? So, you have some kind of protection. And then there's fights that happen without shields. And that's when it's like, okay, the stakes are much higher then, right? Because it just doesn't matter. So it's explained much better in the book about this, like sort of like what these fighting techniques and these methods are, right? So I think the books will kind of expand. If you are going to read the book with your daughter, I think you'll get like, oh, there's an explanation for that. What I like is they don't stop the movie to explain it. They're just, this is the world, right? So it is sort of a, any sort of adaptation of a novel to film is going to be kind of like the Cliff Notes version, where it's just like, movies do one thing differently better than books do. But it is the most faithful adaptation of the book I've ever seen. It does it in an incredibly way that I think if you've not read the books, you'll understand it. So for me, this movie is by far 9.5 out of 10, but that's for me. I'm not a normal person.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, not knowing anything about it, I did enjoy it. And I do appreciate the fact that he doesn't unload the mythology on you right off the bat. And he slowly lets it reveal. The Bene Gesserit stuff. That stuff was really confusing in the movies and the TV show. But here, they're just kind of allowing it to kind of flow out very slowly. And you begin to understand who Lady Jessica is and what her powers are, so to speak, and then the force training that Paul gets. That I really appreciate. I call Denny a master storyteller here, and I think he did a really good job just getting that story told.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the stuff with the Bene Gesserit is really fascinating because something that wasn't in this might be a little spoilery. A bit. But it's a story point that I think is worth noting is that not in the 1984 version, in that sci-fi series version, did they ever point out that like the Bene Gesserit, what they're doing is they kind of like precede these other cultures, these less sophisticated cultures on other planets with the idea of a Messiah coming, right? They basically create myths on planets and spread a religion of like a savior is going to come. Then what they do is they're trying to prep someone, like create this Kwisatz Haderach, the super being, right? That will actually sort of fulfill that myth that they themselves created. It's not based on anything that came organically from the culture. It's something that they preceded to make it easier, so that when Paul comes, it's like they all just assume like he must be the chosen one, right? So so when people say this is a white savior story, it's a flip on that. And then Paul, as he does in the book, has this resentment towards this, like, you're basically setting me up to be this God, and I'm not. I know that I am not that. And then he's having these visions of, because we don't know what, I mean, I know what the second film will more than likely be because I've read the book, but the visions that Paul have are almost like a trailer for the second movie, and he's sort of filled with this dread of like, I'm basically going to launch a crusade. In the book, it's jihad. They changed the name from, in the movie to crusade, because I guess that sounds nicer, but it's a space jihad and then he himself is responsible for the deaths of billions of people. So how does he undo that terrible purpose that he's imbued with? So
so I'm lost now.
they actually get into that in the movie, and I really like that. It's like Paul's resenting, like, you're making me, you're turning me into a monster, right? It's almost like, the way I'll describe it to some people who haven't read the book, it's like if Darth Vader knew he was going to become Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker knew, like, oh shoot, I'm going to become Darth Vader. I want to try and undo that. I want to try and undo my destiny, my fate. So they laid out this destiny and this fate for Paul Atreides, and he's like, I don't want that. I don't want that. You're pushing me into something that I don't want to be. And so the movie it's like what Denis Villeneuve said when he set out to make this. He goes, I want to make like Star Wars for adults, right? And so it just more deeply thinks about the hero myth and those ideas that are in Star Wars, and at least in the original trilogy, I think were pulled off incredibly well.
So you explained a whole lot better than the miniseries did, and I did get to see the sequel, the Children of Dune. I think that's the one. So I did see that. And I kind of see where that is going, and I think the mistake that the miniseries made was it was more of a narrative telling of the story. So we're taking the storyline and presenting that, as opposed to really digging into deeper, like you're doing right now.
Oh, well, there you go. So I guess I did a better job at explaining it. But no, look, I'm a super fan of Dune, and I really want to see these other films in the series made. My understanding is, you've got Dune Part 1. The second movie is intended to be called Dune Prophet. Prophet, although I'm assuming that WB wants prophets. Spelled with an F, and then the third film will be called Dune Messiah, which is also based on the book Dune Messiah, which is, in my mind, it's a much shorter book. It's like, I think it's under 200 pages, and it's kind of an epilogue to all the events in Dune, and kind of tells you Paul Atreides' fate, after the events of the first book, right? So the first book's very dense, setting everything up, and then Dune Messiah is like this little epilogue. I mean, they could potentially make Children of Dune and God Emperor. I'd love to see God Emperor made. But I think it's almost like it's an impossible thing. God Emperor. It's my favorite book just because it's so weird and incredibly philosophical. And I think a lot of Dune fans I didn't get past that. There's like a book. I just didn't get past it. I just thought, like, once the sort of Atreides saga was kind of done, I wasn't as interested. I hate that term, the Skywalker saga. It's so lame.
I will say with with Denis' version, I loved it. I was hooked, and and having seen the other two, it's like, I'm more interested in reading the book now. And I am hopeful that a sequel comes out. And fingers crossed, I guess, on that one.
Yeah, well, you'll see. Like I say, they haven't sort of set forth what the metric is. I have no idea. I'm not good at predicting box office because I vote with my heart instead of my head. And if I'm voting with my heart, Dune, $200 million, biggest box office this weekend. I'm certain I will be wrong. It could make as low as 25 million, just because the running time is always a factor. with these films, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a factor for something. But I will say I'm confident with this. I think it's going to be a big win for HBO Max, which is my personal favorite streaming service at the moment right now, in spite of the fact that it's the worst menu system of all of them, Netflix probably being the best. But I'm really hopeful that there'll be follow-up films in the series, and even this Bene Gesserit series for HBO Max, because, and I'll tell you why I'm hopeful that this will all happen, is WB needs a franchise, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
need a franchise. There are, I mean, we're seeing this sort of some of these franchises. I mean, James Bond is a franchise that's hobbled, right? Like the marketing did it no favors, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to market this as a Me Too James Bond, and nobody wants to see that ever. You know, people want to see James Bond being James Bond. All right.
Yeah, not that we want to get into James Bond, but they marketed that way, which is a mistake because the movie is not that.
It's not only is the movie not, that at all. I mean, his character is pretty much the same. I mean, changed by not to delve into that. I did like that film because it did things I've never seen in a James Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I liked it for that. It was a good sort of way to close the chapter on the Daniel Craig, and they're just going to reboot it with another James Bond.
Yeah.
But I think that there needs to be some new franchises that sort of stick to traditional storytelling that I know resonates with a large audience. And I think what we're seeing with a lot of these franchises is they're trying to sneak in messaging that doesn't resonate with broad audiences. And you see that play out at the box office. You see that play out with, we've seen it happen to franchises. When you go down that road, I don't think it works.
Yeah. Well, I think in this case, the linchpin is whether the philosophy, the mythology of Dune will resonate with society today. And that's interesting. I don't know that they necessarily did that in this movie, but do the themes that Frank Herbert brought up, does it play today? And ultimately, I think that'll be the question of whether, this really becomes a franchise or not.
Well, what I like about it is those themes are there, right? The themes that, you're talking about the exploitation of
the environment,
of the environment, a resource, and a people, right? The Fremen. I mean, it's so obvious that it's the Middle East and oil that we're talking about, but he doesn't hit you over the head, and that's the mistake that a lot of these films do is with their messaging is they just make it so obvious and in your face that this is the message. This is and it's so on the nose. It's like, look, it can be there. And if I'm looking for it, it's there and I appreciate it. And we can have that discussion. And that's why these films will resonate years later because we can still talk about them. But if you're just doing it right on the nose and you're speaking what your theme is out loud, which is what lazy Hollywood writers do today, then people don't like that because it comes off as telling you how to think rather than allowing you to think for yourself.
Yeah. And I think Villeneuve is on the right start. He doesn't do that. He does not hit you over the head with it, but you're getting inklings of it. You're getting little bits of it. And in a way, kind of buying into it. And
it's right out of the book. And that's, I think, the fourth or fifth different pronunciation of Denis.
I think so. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Dennis
Villeneuve, right? Denis Villeneuve. Did I get it right? I don't know.
You probably did.
Did. Well, fact check me.
I'm a writer. I'm not.
Yeah. You're a speaker.
I spelled it right.
You do reviews every week on the Film Threat YouTube channel.
Almost every day. Yeah.
And then well, we should.
I will say shout out to Grammarly, who's helped me with all the spellings
of the
Dune, the Dune characters and land. Yeah, cool. It has saved me many times from misspellings of Dune characters, and thank you, Grammarly.
Cool. Well, I also want to say to those watching or listening to this or whatnot, however you're consuming your content, hey, like and subscribe to the Film Threat YouTube channel. Okay, we are here to help you discover all sorts of bizarre independent films that you would not even know about if you didn't subscribe to this channel. A couple lately, The Spine of Night, which I just saw, amazing heavy metal inspired feature-length animated movie, incredible. And I think, Alan, you talked about it on one of your festival coverage. I think we have a trailer on our channel. Pharma Bros, I just interviewed the director this week, which is a great documentary about Martin Shkreli. So share, subscribe, support the Film Threat YouTube channel. You've seen me show up on other YouTube channels, on Film Courage, on the Nerdrotic channel, on Friday Night Tights, Midnight's Edge. I've been doing a bunch of different YouTube stuff, but you got to come to the Film Threat channel and support us here.
Yeah, you'll get more Chris Gore.
Yeah, more Gore.
More Gore.
And Alan too, with doing reviews and whatnot. We haven't done a review together in a long time. I think we were talking about before we recorded. Corona Zombies was the last time we did a review together. And I should also plug we have this upcoming event. I'll get in some plugs. We're doing a monthly indie film series in Second Life. Yeah, that's right. I'll put the link in the description for this video. It's a series where I do like a panel discussion and show clips and scenes, exclusive clips and scenes from weird independent films. And we're doing Corona Zombies in Second Life on October 28th. And you come in there. I'll actually be my avatar in Second Life. Will actually be there. So you can check that out. You can create your own avatar. We built a Film Threat movie theater, and every month we're going to be doing these fun events in Second Life. So look for that on our social media and follow. This is the long version of share, subscribe.
Yeah, hit that notification button.
Give us a thumbs up. Share the video, because we never do that, Alan. I feel like I don't want to wait. I feel like I don't want to waste people's time with that kind of stuff. I know there's a short way to say it, but I do know that successful YouTube channels and we're not one.
Feels mind control-ish to me for some reason.
A little bit. It's weird, but whatever. I mean, the content on YouTube for the most part is free, so I appreciate it, but just appreciate those who have been supporting Film Threat. And our mission is to help support small indie movies, and our job is to tell you about them by going to film festivals. And heck, you can, if you're a filmmaker right now, you're watching this, you can just send us the movie. You can go to filmthreat.com. There's a little button at the top called, it just says submit your movie, send it to us. We'll review anything. And trust me, Alan has done that.
Oh yeah. Just go to the site. And then remember that when you submit your film, it automatically qualifies for the award this ceremony next year.
Oh, that's yeah, that's coming up next year. We haven't set our dates yet, but it'll be in April or early May is when we're going to be doing it. So we're going to be setting those dates. It's going to be a lot of fun. Great, Alan. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
doing this review with you. I think I liked it a little bit more than you. I'm biased.
You did. I mean, you're very sycophantic about it.
Yes, well, that's true. But I let you know my bias is right up front, right? Yeah. I'm a 9.5. I know you gave it an 8.
I gave it an 8. It's a really good sci-fi adventure, and it gave me Star Wars feels. I mean, there's clearly a lot of similarities. So, I don't think it's the greatest film ever made, but it's good. It's definitely good.
Well, it's the greatest Dune film ever made. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
All right. Thanks for watching.
All right.